Hi, Supervisor Perez. Can you hear me?
They come in. Yeah.
I can.
Supervisor, are you in Riverside at the County Admin Center?
I'm not. I'm in my
Okay.
Latino office.
Okay, we're gonna have to move you to participant because it's not a notice location, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
I need that thing there. Know where that goes. It did pick you up when you were there. I don't know why. It was showing. It was showing over there. So it did. But why? Morning. Hi. Hi, from IT. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Can we begin the housekeeping comments, please?
Thank you for participating in today's meeting. Please do not connect to Zoom or teleconference while in the room, and please silence all devices. Click on the globe at the bottom of your screen to select either English or Spanish. Public comment will be taken after each item. If you are in the auditorium and wish to comment, please use the iPads located in the lobby. For meetings in other locations, please complete a blue speaker card and provide it to a South Coast AQMD employee. Speakers may be limited to a total of 3 minutes or less for all agenda items, and times may be shortened to ensure all speakers can be heard. A countdown timer will be displayed on the screen for each public comment. Word time will be allotted for Spanish translation that is not simultaneous. For questions or issues on public comment, please call the public advisor at 909-396-3247. That's 909-396-3247. Please adhere to the speaker time limit and treat others with courtesy, civility, and respect. Failure to do so can result in your mic being muted or you being removed from the meeting. Be aware that this meeting is being recorded. By participating, you are authorizing recording of audio and visual content presented during the live event and consent to subsequent use of the recording in the public domain by South Coast AQMD.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of you to our Friday, November 8th, 2024 hybrid legislative committee meeting of the South Coast Air Quality Management District. And I'll officially call this meeting to order. And Maria, would you please take roll?
Good morning.
Good
Mayor
morning.
Logdawson? Mayor Logdawson? I do see she's on, but I think she's having audio issues. Supervisor Hackman? Absent. Supervisor Perez is observing only. Councilmember Rahman? Absent. Mayor Salache? Absent. Councilmember Caccioti?
Here.
We do not have a quorum.
Can I suggest that we do some non-voting items and hope that we get additional members?
Yes, Wayne, what would you recommend?
Lisa?
If we could go to item number 4, discussion. We'll start with the federal consultant reports and followed by state.
Great. So we're moving because we don't have a quorum right now, just for a discussion. And we'll get to item number 4, update and discussion of federal legislative issues. Ben, are you here? Ben Miller for Kadish and Associates?
I'm not sure Ben's on, but Mark Kadish is.
Mark, good morning. Welcome. Go ahead, Mark, if you can.
Good morning. Good to see you. Good to see everyone. I'll just give a short update since I think everyone knows where we are on the elections. But in terms of California, we've elected a new U.S. Senator, Adam Schiff, who will take office probably sometime in December. Remember, that was Senator Feinstein's seat. Senator Butler was the appointee, and as soon as that race is certified, he will take part in the 118th Congress. We also have a number of House races that are still outstanding, several in our territory, in our district, including a couple in Orange County and in Simi Valley. And it may be a couple days before those are determined, but at the moment, no race in California has flipped. All the incumbents seem to be ahead. The one Orange County seat is very, very close. Some other seats are still being counted with about 60% of the vote in, so nothing's final. But there haven't been very many changes, so the California delegation looks to be very similar to the 118th.
Thank you, Mark. We'll hold questions for now. Next, Gary, go ahead, please.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to be here. I'm going to give a little update on the U.S. Senate. We see.
It's always like this. It should just.
Am I being heard? Is that okay?
Yes, go ahead, Gary. Sorry.
Okay. So a little update on the Senate. I guess the House control is still not totally decided, but leaning Republican right now. The Senate is confirmed to have flipped now to Republican control with a minimum of 53 seats, a substantial majority, with 1 or 2 seats remaining to be confirmed. But with a 53 seat majority, that will allow Trump to get his cabinet appointments through and his judges through, that sort of thing. So it's very important to the new administration. What we saw in the election was flips on the Republican side, where we had pickups in West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Montana. Those were the states that flipped to Republicans in the Senate, and has given the Republicans the majority at this point. Now, couple of notes: the filibuster will remain in place. There's no threat to the filibuster here. Next week will be leadership elections. And on the Republican side, Mitch McConnell is retiring, so from the leadership at any rate. And so you've got a race between Senator Thune, Senator Cornyn, and Senator Scott. And the inside betting right now is that Thune has the upper hand on that South Dakota senator. So we'll keep an eye on that. The other point of note is in the Senate, there are a total of 12 new senators, 6 Republicans and 6 Democrats, with the various changes that have come about. So those, many of those could be targets for us to communicate with, educate their offices about our issues and so forth. So I'll just leave it at that for now. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Gary. Amelia, go next, please. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to just quickly cover some key milestones in the next couple of months, so we have a good idea of how things will progress through the presidential transition, and then talk a little bit about names for EPA, and I'm going to also bring up Department of Justice. So next week, the lame duck session begins. It's expected that the lame duck will focus almost exclusively on finishing out appropriations, either through a continuing resolution or a year-end package. And then there will also be an emergency supplemental to deal with hurricanes and other emergency issues. And it's expected that that will be the bulk of what is done between now and the end of the year, with the remaining part of this Congress. The CR, the continuing resolution we currently have, expires on the 20th. There are some procedural things certifying the election. But I think the next important key date is January 3rd, which is the swearing in of the new members of Congress, and the 119th Congress convenes. January 6th, the elections will be certified, and then inauguration is January 20th, which will then kick off the first 100 days. And as Gary mentioned, it is likely that nominees for top cabinet post will be considered in an expedited way because of the composition of the Senate. So let me just quickly turn to some cabinet appointments that are going to be obviously very important for South Coast. And the first of that is who will lead the Environmental Protection Agency. And there have been about 6 names that have been bandied about. Obviously, more names will come about, but some of those names will be familiar to you. Andrew Wheeler, the former EPA administrator's name has been out there. The former EPA chief of staff, Mandy, Gunaskara. I'm going to butcher these names, so I'll apologize in advance. The former Fish and Wildlife Director, Aurelia Skipworth. Doug Benevetto, the acting director, Travis Voiles, who worked for the state of Virginia, and even Robert Kennedy Jr. So those are some names we have, but obviously we will keep the staff up to date. And then I wanted to mention one other thing that we're going to keep our eyes on moving forward, and that's any sub-cabinet level appointments to Department of Justice. And I flagged this for you all because we did have a discussion in the last meeting about the Loper Bright decision and what the impacts that could be on agency discretion. And so as we expect suits to come in from the outside, the person who's in the environment desk at Department of Justice is obviously going to be very influential in how the government responds with this new legal framework we're under. So we'll keep you up to date on everything, but that should give you just an idea very early, the same election week on what might be ahead of us. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Amelia. Let me just check with staff. Maria, are there any more board members on?
Not yet.
Okay, Mayor Block Dawson, do you have any questions for our federal legislative representatives? Can't hear. Oh, no. No audio there? Okay, so no audio. Do you want to text me? Or text Wayne? I have no questions. Thank you. That's great work as always. We'll move on to our state legislative. Well, is there any public comment on item number 4? See none in the auditorium. Is there, Wayne, any online? None online? Okay, we'll move to item number 5. Update and discussion state legislative issues. First up will be Paul Gonzalez. Of the
Hello? Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, Mayor, we can hear you. Did
All
you have
right.
any questions
Perfect.
for federal representatives?
No, I did not. I apologize. We're really struggling this morning with a few things. So thank you. I do not, but now I can vote if there is a vote.
Okay, great.
Okay.
We're now moving on to the state, and Mr. Gonzalez will go first. Go ahead.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a very brief update to my written report, just kind of continuing on with the election update theme that we have going this morning. I wanted to provide the committee with an update on the assembly races and where they stand today. And as we all know, it's still very fluid with the vote counting still continuing. But as you probably know, all 80 assembly seats were up for election. Out of those 80 seats, about 4 are still too close to call. Those 4 include in the 36th Assembly District, which is the San Bernardino Imperial area. Republican Jeff Gonzalez leads Democrat Joey Acuna by about less than 2,000 votes. That's for the old Assembly member Eddie Garcia seat. In the 40th Assembly District, this is the Santa Clarita area. Current Democrat Assembly member, the incumbent Pilar Chiavo, leads her Republican challenger Patrick Gibson by about 4,500 votes. And those numbers keep going in favor of Pilar, so it's looking like she's going to be victorious there. In the 47th Assembly District, this is San Bernardino Riverside area. Democratic challenger Christy Holstage, she's beating the incumbent Republican Assembly member Greg Wallace by about 640 votes. So this one is still very close and will go up close to the deadline. And lastly, in the 58th Assembly District, this is again the San Bernardino Riverside area. Republican Leticia Cervantes leads Democrat Clarissa Cervantes by about 2,500 votes. So other than that, all the other 76 seats have clear winners. Of those, 55 incumbents held on to their seats. That's assuming Assembly member Pilar Chiavo holds on to her lead. That number will jump to 56 incumbents holding on to their seats if Assembly member Greg Wallace wins and holds on to his seat. So what does that mean? That means we're going to see anywhere between 24 to 26 new members of the assembly, depending on the outcome of those 4 races. And prior to the November election, the assembly makeup was 62 Democrats and 17 Republicans with 1 vacancy. Post-November makeup, November election makeup, the assembly will be anywhere between 59 to 61 Democrats and 19 to 21 Republicans, meaning the Assembly Democrats lost anywhere between 2 to 4 seats, and the Assembly Republicans are going to gain anywhere between 2 to 4 seats. And if the November election wasn't enough to satisfy your voting needs and cravings, Assemblymember Vince Fong won his race for the 32nd Assembly District, and he also won his race for the 20th Congressional District. So this means California will have to hold a special session to fill the 32nd Assembly District seat, which will most likely happen after the swearing in of Congressmember Fong. And lastly, Mr. Chair, I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize and congratulate Mayor Salachi for his election to the 62nd Assembly District. We look forward to continuing to work with him and his new capacity here in Sacramento. And so that completes my update, Mr. Chair. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Galvis. Next, we'll move to Mr. Quintana. Go ahead, Mr. Quintana.
Yeah, hi. I just have one thing to add to my report, and that is that yesterday the governor called for a special session when they return on December 2nd to be sworn in. That is when the session will go into effect. The basis of this special session is to get the legislature to consider and potentially enact legislation to provide additional funding as necessary to challenge any regulatory moves that the Trump administration may make on California programs. So we'll see how that develops, but that will begin on December 2nd.
Thank you, David. And finally, on the state issues, Ross Buckley. Ross, go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. I wanted to provide an update on the state Senate election. Heading into the election, there were 20 seats up in the Senate, so half the House for the Senate was up for election this year. The makeup of the overall Senate as it currently sat before the election was 31 Democrats and 9 Republicans. As the voting has continued to count, right now it appears the Senate Democrat incumbent in Senate District 37 is down to his opponent by about 12,000 votes this morning. So that one is looking like a potential Republican pickup, which would make the overall makeup 30 Democrats, 10 Republicans hang into the new legislative session. However, as of last night, there's still over 5.5 million votes to count statewide, so still a lot of votes to be counted. So a lot of these tight races that could affect any number of these close contested races. In addition to the state and legislative races, there were also 10 ballot propositions. I want to highlight 2 of those ballot propositions that were up for a vote. One was Prop 4, which was the climate bond, which is likely to pass. That's currently passing by a wide margin. And then Prop 5, which would have allowed local governments to raise taxes to incur bond indebtedness to a lower threshold for infrastructure projects. It appears like that ballot proposition will actually fail. As we look towards the end of this year, just wanted to note that December 2nd is when all of the new legislators and the legislators will come back to Sacramento to be sworn in for the new session, and then they'll go on break and come back in January to start things off in earnest. That completes my report, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Russ. I'll check with Mayor Loch Dawson in beautiful city of Riverside. Mayor, any questions or comments? She's shaking her head no. Okay, is there any public comment in the building? Seeing none. Any online, Wayne?
No.
No. Okay, thanks everyone at the federal and state levels. Should we go on to other business? Just keep going down to non-voting, or what do you suggest?
So one of the things that I know that could be done is we could take some of the issues out of order. So for instance, the 2025 state and federal legislative guiding principles. While typically the committee would vote to move that on to the board, seeing that we don't have a quorum presently, we could still hear that issue, and then the current committee members could make the recommendation to the full board And so it could move on, but it just wouldn't be the committee vote.
Okay.
Bay, is
Yeah,
that correct?
Yeah, it would technically be a communication to the board from the two board members, assuming that there was agreement on the position. Communicate that they were in favor of it. In other words, or opposed to it.
So I would suggest that maybe we hear the state and federal legislative guiding principles first. Then we can go to the concepts for sponsored legislation. Basically go in reverse order.
Okay.
In order to, we understand Councilmember Rahman is on her way.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so we're just trying to buy time.
Great.
So
Okay.
Lisa, are you okay with that?
That sounds great. Thank you. Philip?
Great, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. Included in the committee packet are the proposed South Coast AQMD state and federal legislative guiding principles for 2025. They provide a broad set of policy and funding principles that will allow staff to work quickly and efficiently in line with board guidance in Sacramento and Washington, D.C. Both sets of principles are similar to last year's with minor updates and adjustments. Among other things, the principles focus on protecting public health and facilitating attainment of state and federal clean air standards by protecting and increasing air quality funding, protecting South Coast AQMD authority, and promoting the development and deployment of the cleanest commercially available infrastructure, equipment, and vehicle technologies. Staff recommends approval of the 2025 state and federal legislative guiding principles. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Mayor Lock Dawson, any questions or comments or discussion on this item?
No, I'm fine, and I would move approval if we had a quorum, but I would just move perhaps, or say that I would recommend, I guess that was the word we were using, make a recommendation or guidance or something to the full board to accept these principles.
Okay, I would support your guidance recommendation or communication to the full board. And I think other people participating would agree to that.
Whatever we call it, communication, I'm looking at Byron, he's like gonna shake.
Yeah, we would say that Chair Cacciati and Mayor Lock Dawson are communicating that they would be in favor of these 2025 state and federal legislative guiding principles.
Since we're not voting, can Supervisor Perez weigh in?
No, because that would unfortunately involve him participating, even though he's not in a proper location.
Thank you.
Okay, even though it's only a communication, he still can't participate?
Yeah, it's a different issue. That issue relates to his basically being involved in the meeting. So we wouldn't want to do that, unfortunately.
All right, is there any public comment on this item, state guiding principles? Ooh.
Online, we do have Harvey Etter online.
Oh, okay, Harvey, go ahead, please.
Hello.
Good morning, Harvey. We can hear you. You've got 3 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Hello. Good morning. Am I being heard? Yes.
Yes, please
Okay.
go ahead. Welcome.
My name's Harvey Etter. I'm speaking for myself and Public Solar Power Coalition. I'm real concerned about the concept of guidelines, legal guidelines. They're being used by EPA to set up a FIP for not meeting contingency measures on the back end. And this is on the front end, the plans. And we put in the Solar New Deal in the 16 plan. It was totally ignored. Okay, equity. We did this with the PUC, the Low Income Solar Equity Project, in the late 70s, early 80s with Commissioner Grimes. Totally ignored by all state federal agencies. So this has to be dealt with. And not just health, but health and safety. All right? And under CEQA and NEPA, expanding socioeconomic impact to include political economic, as per Assembly Member
Mr. Etter,
Layla.
doesn't appear you're commenting on the state guiding principles.
I am. These are the guidelines, and these are things that should be included in the guidelines, and that's obvious, and this should not be part of my time. This should be taken out of my time, and this is repeatedly done to me, and you're stifling the people on this. and it's outrageous. And also, we could not get download of this committee, administrative, or the other one coming up, small business and local government. And that's outrageous, and anything that comes out of this is illegal, violates the Brown Act.
Thank you.
That should not be.
He's moved away from this subject, so we can move on.
Thank you, Mr. Etter. Any more public comment on this item? Seeing none here in the auditorium and none online. I see the esteemed council member from the city of Los Angeles, Nithya
Yes,
Raman, join us.
just wanted to say I'm here. Thank you.
Nithya, thank you. I think we can vote on this measure now. Is that a quorum, Wayne? Barbara?
Yes.
So I see
Yes,
heads.
it is.
Yes, it is. We have a quorum. So, Nithya, have you had a chance to look at this item?
Yes. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Since we have a quorum, I can.
Are we looking at are we voting on contracts at the moment? What are we doing? I'm a little confused.
On the state legislative guiding principles for 2025?
Okay, all
So
right.
this was the item that we were gonna recommend you do a communication, but now you can actually vote on it.
Right.
I would move approval of making this recommendation to the full board.
I second that.
And that'd be for both state and federal guiding principles?
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Great, they're pretty much identical. Okay.
And I'll second that.
Thank you, council member. Thank you, Mayor. Roll call, please.
Mayor Lock Dawson,
Aye.
Supervisor Hagman, absent. Supervisor Perez, observing only. Councilmember Rahman,
Yes.
Mayor Solache, absent. Councilmember Caccioti,
Yes.
motion passes 3-3 absent.
Thank you. Wayne, would you recommend we go back to item number 1?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go back to item number 1, execute contracts for legislative representation in Washington, D.C. And I'll turn to Lisa Tanaka, Assistant DEO, Legislative, Public Affairs and Media. Lisa, go ahead, please.
Great. Good morning, Chair, members of the board. If you recall at our last legislative committee meeting, the decision to choose the federal legislative representatives was delayed due to the elections, which have now occurred. And so there are 5 firms before you for consideration: Balance, Carmen Group, Cassidy and Associates, Ferrick Strategies, and Kadish and Associates. Just a note, if you should have any questions, there are representatives from each firm available on the Zoom. And I believe Mr. Flores is here in person. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Committee members, any questions for staff?
No, but I would move approval of the execution of the contracts. The ones with the highest scores, the Kaddish, Carmen, and Cassidy.
I'm sorry, I at least was not clear exactly what was the suggestion. Could you repeat that?
I was recommending approval of the execution of the contracts for the 3 incumbent representatives, Kaddish, Carmen, and Cassidy.
Thank you.
Is there a second for them?
I wanted to just state that I was very impressed with Fairrock Strategies presentation from last time as well.
Councilmember, do you want to second that motion or just have a discussion?
Yes, I just wanted to say, I appreciated the presentations from Kaddish and from Cassidy. And I also liked our other current representation, but I also just wanted to state here that Fairrock Strategies presentation was impressive. So I'm not sure how you want to proceed, Chair. I'll follow your lead, but just wanted to offer that.
I agree with the mayor's comments and your comments both. But let me ask staff, so maybe staff is, in the front lines of this item. and they're in Sacramento, Washington, DC all the time, back and forth. I know we've got a budget to follow. And Lisa, how much do we have available in our budget for legislative representation in Washington?
So our current budget for our representation is $664,482 roughly. And so the combination of three firms would exceed our budget. We do appreciate all of the resources that the board provides us, and we'll do our best to make all of it work. I will say that Kadish covers the California delegation like no other firm in Washington, D.C. They're solid, they've delivered. Cassidy has a very broad spectrum. They are instrumental in getting us into the White House and to leadership, both Republican and Democratic, as well as committee staff and outside offices. And, we do appreciate all of the service from all of the firms, but I think those would be the two strongest.
And that is Cassidy and Associates and Kadish and Associates.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm happy to amend my motion if you'd like, just to approve those two. It sounds like we're not gonna have money for all three. Is that right? No, did I hear you right?
I didn't hear that, Mayor. You just kind of ruffled it when you were talking.
I apologize. I'm happy to amend my motion to just have the two firms, Kadish and Cassidy. It sounded like we did not have enough money to do a third. Is that correct?
I think we could, it's our decision as a board if we want to allocate a little more money. We're not too much over budget, but maybe can you hold your motion just for a minute?
Yes.
So let me ask staff. So we've got two, and I know Carmen's done a good job, but and I've looked at balance, and Dean's incredible, but I would almost, if I had a choice, a strategy, push him over to the state as we look at the state representatives who compete over there. I know he did an incredible job in Sacramento. Really like him for that. And his contacts there with everybody. But I was, as the council members mentioned, I was really impressed with Ferox too. Just, I remembered, and I know I indicated I'd spoken to them, and I'd like to ask the question again, whether, they're asking for 247, which we just can't afford it. I would not put them ahead of, if we determine to go with two, Cassidy and Kadish, would not put them ahead of those. May I speak to is the person for Ferox on the line? I'd like to ask him a question.
We move over Christina Antonello and Mark Williams.
Yes, sir. The answer from us is we are very excited and want to take on this representation. I think we put in a lot of work on this presentation. We learned a lot about you guys specifically. We have an environmental scientist on our team who has will keep us apprised of all of these issues, and we are excited to join, to the point that we would lower our retainer just to be able to have an opportunity to start working with you all to show you what we're capable of, and we really want to be able to demonstrate that going forward, sir.
Christina, I was impressed with some comments, and I think Mark might have made them that as the results came in on the election, it's kind of not a surprise to a lot of people, but it may be a total Republican Congress and president. What is your strong points? I think Mark mentioned it before with regard to the Republican administration.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm happy to speak to that. We've got connections in and out of Trump world. As a matter of fact, we've had some talks with the folks who are setting up the current administration. And so I think we'll be well positioned across kind of all the agencies there, not to mention the House that's going to remain Republican, which I served in or staffed in for 17 years. My colleague served on the Energy and Commerce Committee there, which there will be a ton of issues that affect you guys, and not to mention the Senate that's now Republican as well. So look, I think we're prepared to represent you guys, especially in what is now an all Republican town.
Okay. And again, Christina, if we did choose you, I'm not sure, or make the recommendation to the full board, it's my understanding you agreed to reduce your cost down to comparable to the other consultants, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, definitely no more. Okay, good. That's good to hear. Before we have a, Wayne, did you want to make a comment or before any vote, is there any public comment on this item?
I think you may want to reconsider the motion.
Okay, there was a motion and do you want to withdraw your motion or reconsider it, Mayor? Or, I mean, you made one motion. Did you pull that motion back and make another motion?
Let me just, I'm a little bit concerned that they now know what everybody else has bid, and then they're saying they want to lower their retainer. I think that's a little bit not cool. As a consultant myself who does that kind of work, I think it's a little bit unfair, I think, to the other participants. I'm happy to support them if you feel very strongly about it, but I think that's not a very good way to do it. I think once they found out what the other firms have bid, now they're saying they want to lower it to be part. So.
Respectfully, we'd not had the chance to work with you all in the past. We didn't have kind of a very good line of sight on the scope of work. And I think that what we were representing, thinking kind of it's the entire board, not really understanding the totality of the team, understanding that there are other players involved and that there are 3 firms now that would continue working. I think that we are willing to reduce the scope of work to reduce that number so that it makes sense. So it's more about kind of us not having the line of sight into how the team would work going forward. We thought we would be responsible for the entire portfolio. And if there are other team members, then clearly the scope of work is reduced.
Sure, but I mean, that's the risk you take as a consultant, right, when you put in your bids. So I mean, that's all I'm saying is it's a little bit, like, would you give the same, I'm asking, chair or staff, would you give that same opportunity to the other consultants too, right? I mean, it's a little bit, and I have nothing against you, Fair Strategies, I'm just speaking as a consultant myself and how these things go down and then people getting angry and filing suits against the board and all those kinds of things for unfair practices. So just throwing that out there.
Nithya, did you have a comment or a question or discussion?
No, I appreciate, Mayor, your input into this, and I just wanted to offer some clarity on my initial remarks.
Nithya, hold on one second. Nithya, I'm sorry. It's can anybody understand what she's saying? I can't up here. It's kind of ruffling your voice or modifying your voice. Almost to an AI modification.
Really?
The voice modulator.
It's still muffled or altered.
I'm so sorry. I have no idea what's going on. We're using the same setup as always.
That's a little better. That's a little better. We can hear you.
What if I came closer to the microphone? Does that change anything?
No. I hear you a little bit better. Maybe just speak a little more slowly. Yeah, I think that is helpful just because it's getting kind of warbled, that's all.
Apologies. I hope this is clear. I just wanted to clarify my earlier remarks, which was to say that I think that all of the consultants who presented in front of us last time made impressive presentations, and our existing representation in Washington has been, I think, very good. I just wanted to state that Philip Strategies that hasn't worked with us before also made a very impressive presentation last time. And I just wanted to make sure that we were discussing their presentation and what they could bring to the table before we move forward with your recommendation, Mayor. It was not against our existing representation or against the other consultants. I just came away from that conversation impressed with Christina and the other team members. So that's all.
And I agree with your comments. Before there was a motion by Mayor Dawson, Mayor, did you want to hold off on a motion or should we take any
I
public
guess
comment?
I would like to hear from perhaps legal, just having been in these things before, getting challenged by, you know, uh, just negotiating your scope of work and your money up front after when it was a blind bid. I'm not sure that's without having it go back out. I don't know if you can do that.
Barbara, do you want to go or obey?
Barbara, you can go if you have thoughts and I can share mine when you're done.
So why don't you go first?
So my thought is we have a certain amount of money. How much is that, Lisa?
664,000?
Yeah. So that's not enough for three, based on their current costs. I mean, what we could do is we could ask all of the firms if they would be willing to equally divide that amount amongst them. If we were to go with them, all five firms, and see if they would be okay with that. Another option would be to go with two firms, based on what they're at now.
Wayne,
So-
oh, Barbara, go ahead. Do you want to add anything?
I think another potential option is to increase the budget. We cannot do that definitively today because it's not on the agenda and it would require full board approval in any event. But you could say that we're recommending the following listed consultants, and we are recommending that the board, or at least that we put on the agenda for the governing board meeting, a specified increase in the budget. I'm saying that as a legal matter. I don't know how that plays out as a budgetary matter for the agency, so I'll defer to Wayne on that. But I think it's a legal option. You could put it on the agenda for the board meeting.
I was thinking something very similar. Advance the two that fits within the current budget, and then note that we would go back for additional funds. And if the participants are willing to keep their bids in, then there could be a discussion once we've acquired the additional funds. My only concern is timing to get approval for additional funds. So from my perspective, there's a couple of options. Proceed with the consultants within the existing budget, and we move forward that way. I think that's probably the safest way. I don't think we want to change the existing terms any further than what's already been discussed. But those are my thoughts, and I know that Gary Hoitzman has his hand raised, and Mayor Dawson has her hand raised as well.
Thanks, Wayne. Gary, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of the Carmen Group, I would just say that we originally came on board to help the agency with outreach on the Republican side. And I think we've done a very successful job of that. And I would say that you've got a great team here. I mean, I've been in the lobbying business for 20 years. I've never seen a more successful team than we have right now. And each of the consultants together complement each other very much. Our task has been in helping on the Republican side, in building coalitions with industry and with other offices in the Congress. And we've been given specific tasks and we've performed them well. And I think it would be a mistake really to break up this team at this point. I think it's the kind of thing when you've got this transition, it's a very busy time right now. We are already engaged in everything that needs to be done right now to have a successful transition. We know the Trump world very well as well. Andrew Wheeler's been a good friend of mine. He is going to be the next EPA administrator. I've talked to him already. And I think the better path here is to keep the current team together. And if there's problems down the road, it's a 1-year term. You should reevaluate it a year from now. That would be my proposal. I would also point out that our fee has been stable for the last 9 years, and we've done that in deference to the agency and understanding there are money issues involved here. So I would just encourage you to keep the current team together. I think it's the best path forward. You don't want new people coming in to trip over each other. That's my thought. Thank you.
Mayor Lock-Dawson?
Yeah, thank you. And I don't want to tell Gary what to do, but I mean, as a consultant myself who's been on these things, I could very well see somebody submitting a complaint about what, negotiating a different rate after all the bids are in. So that is what I'm really concerned about. And so if it is the committee's wish to perhaps keep the team together, as Mr. Hoytsman says, and then if there's an opportunity to bring in Ferox in some way during the year to see how they fare, I mean, or we could just go with the two that we know, Kadish and Cassidy. I mean, if we have the money for that, and just get them on board quickly, and then reassess bringing other ones on. I'm open to comment on that.
Okay, there's one public comment while we're.
Yes, sorry,
Just-
I'll be clear. We have a couple options, right? We can just take the two forward. We can take Cassidy and Kadish. We can take the 3 forward if you want, or we can do, I think, not do Carmen, but do Ferox, but then be at risk of being challenged on your bidding process. So I'll just be clear.
Wayne, do you want to comment on that?
The challenge with the 3 proposals is that we're still over budget. And that's why I was suggesting that we stay within budget and that we could go back to the full board for additional funds. That was the basis of my recommendation. My only concern, as I said before, is the time for us to go back and make that award. I don't know if legal has any insight. Bay?
I'm trying to, I guess, however, the one option would be to have the board select, or the committee to recommend their top 2 firms, and then also state that they would be in favor of a budget increase of X amount of dollars so that they could also retain a 3rd firm. And then state what that firm would be and how much more that would be based on the bid that they offered. Is that clear? So it'd be, we'd recommend A and B, and we'd also recommend that we adopt additional X in funds to have C. And then that could go to the board in December.
So for that, Bay, for that last option, then to be fair, would you rebid that on that extra money that the board, or would you have the full board interview the other potential people? I mean, I'm a little bit confused as to how you would go forward with that.
What I'm envisioning is that the difference in cost between the 5 is, the biggest difference is 25,000. So I think we would be looking to add, I think our budget's about 664. Is that right?
Yes.
So we'd be looking to add, my math's not totally great right now, but anywhere from 25 to 50, $60,000 to the budget. And so it would depend on which group that you chose, how much would be added.
So if I may, if the committee wants to move all three of the existing team, on average, it would take us about another 45,000. So within the range that Bay had just specified. What we could do is if we move those three in the way that Bay specified, then the next year, we would clean up the total budget amount. So we wouldn't have to be budgeting for this year and the next subsequent years. We could clean that up at the next time. So it'd be a 45,000 increase for the current three.
And that wouldn't require, does that require an increase in the budget recommendation? I'm confused. You're saying that you don't have to do that?
Only after the first year, because we would ask for the full budgeted amount. But in this case, since the current three exceed the existing budgeted amount, the recommendation that Bay made, and Bay will correct me if I misstate it, is that the committee could recommend moving forward with the two within the current budget, and then also seek a budget increase that would account for the third current member of the existing team. Is that right, Bay?
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yes, I would just say that it's not necessarily to account for the third member of the current team, but for the third member that the committee recommends and or that the board would want to go with, because the board might disagree with the committee's recommendation. So in other words,
All right, let's get this out of the way. I'll make a motion to approve Cassidy and Kadish, and let's do that.
I'll second that motion.
Public comment? Harvey Etter, go ahead, please. Harvey, you're on mute.
Hello? Hello, am I being heard? Yes.
Yes, you are. Go ahead. You got
Okay.
3 minutes.
The Supreme Court in March overrode state of Colorado Supreme Court.
Mr. Etter, we're talking about the consultants.
Harvey, if you can, stay on point. We're talking about the selection of federal legislative representatives in Washington.
I'm
Go ahead.
incorporating that by reference, and I want to see top priority to negating the election because it was a violation of 14th
Yeah,
Amendment.
that's not related to who we should
insurrection
select, so we can move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Bay. Is there any more public comment in the auditorium? Seeing none. Any more online? Raise your hand right now before we vote. I see none. So just so we're clear, the motion was by Mayor Locke Dawson, hire the two of the current consultants, Kadish and Cassidy. It was seconded by Councilmember Rahman. Roll call, please.
Mayor Locke Dawson,
Aye.
Supervisor Hagman, absent. Supervisor Perez, observing only. Councilmember Rahman,
Yes.
Mayor Solache, absent. Councilmember Caciotti.
Yes,
Motion passes 3 ayes with 3 absent.
thank you. Committee members, what's your next recommendation on this item? Or maybe staff has a recommendation for us. Would you like to, Mayor or council member?
I just want to say I'm happy to follow your lead. I just offered my input into our discussions based on the presentations that we saw last time. And Gary's team has certainly been a great partner to our work in the past as well. My input was only that Ferric Strategies also made a very impressive presentation. So, and I think I'm happy to follow your lead in this.
I'm struggling too because I had the same feeling you did after the meeting with regard to Ferox, and I also respect the Carmen Group too. They've done a great job in Washington. So Mayor, what are your thoughts? I just thought it'd be bringing a new player. We've got a great team there already, but it might add one for a year and then reassess. What are your thoughts?
Okay, well, I think I hear everybody's comments and I think Ferrex would do a great job too. And I'm just really concerned about the bidding process at this point. And I am concerned about breaking up the team as Mr. Hoytsma said. So I was looking for a way to perhaps bring in, let's give Ferrex a try in some capacity, perhaps not the full, the full contract. Perhaps you keep Mr. Hoytsma and his group in place so the team is intact, and then we perhaps, give Christina and her team like a little trial run in some ways on some issues. I don't know if that's possible or not, but it seems to me it would give folks a level of comfort to do it all the way around. Is that possible at all? Wayne, Bay, anybody? Christina, I don't know.
So it is possible. I'm trying to make sure I understand fully. If the desire is to keep the 3 current contractors, obviously, as has been said, we've had a phenomenal year last year. There's just no doubt about it on every front when it comes to DC. So it's hard to argue with that kind of success. I do have within my own authority some funding, and what I would be more than happy to do is to discuss with Ferox maybe some limited things that we could look at within my spending authority that would give us an opportunity to look and assess what they're able to do in contribution to the team that we have right now. So I hear what Mayor Locke Dawson is saying with regards to concerns about the process. And so it's really up to the committee. I can accommodate Ferox if the will of the committee is to keep the existing team intact outside of this.
I would make that motion then. I would make the motion to hire Carmen Group, continue that on, and include exploring opportunities to bring Ferox on in some limited, discrete tasks so we get to know them a little bit better and we can see, and they get to know us a little bit better too.
Yeah. And just a question for staff, as we're trying to, one of our legislative guiding principles was to keep our operational costs to within operational costs. So one of our guiding principles is to keep our operational costs for staff, for pensions, for our budget. I've always got to keep us in line. So if we were to do that, Wayne, go with the current 3 and then look at Ferox for, surgical strikes when we need them. Could we renegotiate with the 3 to try to get it down a little lower? And I've got to keep in budget. We want to hire, we had 5 great opportunities back. We got 5 great proposals. We just can't hire everybody. So Barbara, can we those current 3, I want to keep them possibly. All did a great job.
All right, let me amend my motion. Keep Carmen on for now.
There,
and then
maybe
we'll talk.
before you amend your motion, if I could just say this, to add Carmen to the other 2 will require an increase in budget of about 42,000. So the committee, in making its recommendation, can also make that statement to keep Carmen and the other 2 intact, make the recommendation as part of the overall recommendation to the full board to also include the 42,000. I don't know if that's where you were going.
That would be my motion.
Okay.
Okay, there's a motion to add the Carmen Group and also make a recommendation to the full board to allocate an additional amount of money, as Wayne indicated on the record. That's the motion?
So
Bay?
So I'm sorry, could you repeat the motion? I just want to make sure we don't need to do a reconsideration of the prior matter that just passed.
Mayor, do you
The
want to?
motion was to engage Carmen Group, an increase in budget of, I believe it's 42, 62, whatever Wayne just said.
42.
That was the motion.
Wayne said 42,000.
Could I make a recommendation with regard to the motion? Since the matter of the budget is not on the agenda for today, rather than saying we recommend an additional 42,000 be added, I would recommend that the motion say we want to place on the board's agenda consideration of increasing the budget 42,000 in order to implement the recommended three consultants. It's a subtle distinction, but I feel that if we do it that way, it's a little bit safer.
Happy to amend the motion to reflect that change.
Is there a second? Okay, there's a second from Councilmember Rahman, is that correct? Yes, your voice is still coming a little light, okay. Any more discussion? Seeing none, no more public comment. We've closed the public comment period. And what was the discussion regarding Ferox 2? It was that we would use them for special.
Can we take the vote first and then we'll come back to that?
Okay, we can. Okay, we can we do that, Barbara?
Yes, I recommend we vote on the motion now.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mayor Logdawson,
Aye.
Supervisor Hackman, absent. Supervisor Perez, observing only. Councilmember Robin, Mayor Solache, absent. Councilmember Caccioti,
Yes,
motion passes 3 with 3 absent.
great. And just with regard to Ferox, Wayne, what was our agreement or decision or discussion?
I was just going to say that I think I would like to direct our EO to explore opportunities to work with Ferox in this next year within his budget, his discretionary budget, to see if there are opportunities. And does that sound
Your
good?
motion? Do we
I
need
don't
it?
think we need a motion on that. Mr. Nastry's indicated he's willing to do that.
And I agree with the mayor's comments. Nithya, is that your?
Thank you for Wayne for being willing to consider that. I think it's important to have opportunities provided for new voices as well, although I have a lot of faith in our existing group.
Agreed. Thank you. And I think this also helps us get around the whole bidding problem too. So I think that will be a good way to go. If Wayne's amenable, if Ferox is amenable to it too.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. We would be excited to work with you guys in any capacity. Absolutely.
We'd like to get to know you a little bit better too. I think you did give a great presentation, so.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Items complete. Great work, great discussion, committee members, staff. Let's move on to item number 2, concepts for 2025 South Coast AQMD sponsored state legislative proposals. Philip Crabb, Senior Public Affairs Manager, Legislative Public Affairs and Media. Philip, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chair and committee members, I will present the following 2 potential 2025 South Coast AQMD sponsored state bills in concept. The first one is the Cardboard Air District Representative Fair Compensation Bill. And as a reminder, the history of this is this bill concept was approved by the board in 2024, resulting in AB 2958 by Assemblymember Calderon. That bill passed the Assembly, but ultimately died in Senate Appropriations Committee. As a reminder, the bill would provide that CAR board members representing air districts who currently receive little to no compensation receive the same level of compensation as other voting CAR board members. So that's the first one, and I can move on to the second one unless there's any questions or comments.
Go on right now. We'll come back to questions.
Okay. The second one is a cleanup bill for AB 2851 by Assemblymember Bonta. That's regarding fence line monitoring at metal shredding facilities. AB 2851 was signed into law and will take effect on January 1st, 2025. The history on that bill is that in 2024, the board approved a position of support, if amended, for an early version of AB 2851. Despite some initial positive bill language changes, later amendments to the bill were added that South Coast AQMD did not support. And one example is they transferred air monitoring responsibilities from DTSC to air districts. The final bill requires by January 1st, 2027, air districts with metal shredding facilities in their region, in consultation with DTSC and OEHA, to develop requirements for facility-wide fence line air quality monitoring at metal shredding facilities. So the bill proposal would be to secure cleanup legislation relating to implementation funding, specifically to replace current air district funding statutory language to require that air districts be reimbursed by metal shredding facilities for implementation costs incurred by districts as a result of this bill, similar to DTSC and OEHA will be reimbursed as part of the original bill. The current language is more relying on the fee authority of air districts, so it would be much more facilitated to have it be just language saying reimbursed by the facilities. Staff recommends approval of these two bill proposals for South Coast AQMD sponsorship, and that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Committee members, any questions for Philip? See none. Philip, these are the two main ones. Are you considering other proposals right now at all, or just you're going to focus on this right now?
Yeah, we'll be open to considering others, but these are the first two that are ready to go.
Okay, so if Nithya or the mayor want something coming up in a few months, they could do that, bring it forward?
Absolutely.
Great. Wayne, did you want to comment?
I just wanted to add that there are a number of activities that we're going to be closely following, not the least of which is cap and trade. Most likely is going to need to be come up again for renewal. So that's going to be a really important one. Did we talk about the JRB?
Yeah, well, there'll be, of course, AB 98 by some member Carrillo that's regarding basically cleanup for that bill. And there's some unfunded mandates that are being imposed on South Coast AQMD with regard to monitoring and public process on rule penalties and things like that. So that would be another one. Also, there's a special session being called with regard to potential policies of the Trump administration that will take effect. That'll be a new item that's going to be probably pretty prominent as well that we'll need to deal with.
Great.
Oh, and of course, just sorry, one more thing, AB 617 funding, the budget is always every year an effort, especially in tough budget times like we had last year and this year. So we'll be, again, looking for new champions and trying to secure as much funding as possible. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you for now.
Okay, thank you, staff. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none in the auditorium. Wayne, nothing online. Board members, committee members, any more questions for staff based on our last comments? Council member, yes? No questions? Mayor, no questions? Okay, great. And no public comment. We'll move on to item 3 already, done 4 and 5. Wayne?
We need a motion.
Oh, we need a motion on that one?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll move I'll entertain a motion. Move these concepts.
I'll move approval.
Councilmember Rahman, would you second that?
Apologies, I think we're having some audio difficulties here. Yes, I'm happy to second. Apologies for my technical difficulties today.
No, thank you. There's a motion and a second. Maria, please, roll call.
Mayor
No
Lawson.
public comment. This item.
I did, but nobody, nobody in the auditorium and no hands raised. Just confirming no hands raised. Susan?
Yep, no hands raised.
Okay, then we'll, roll call. Is it roll call okay to go forward now, Bay? Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead, Maria.
Mayor Lawson.
Aye.
Supervisor Hagman, absent. Supervisor Perez, observing only. Councilmember Rahman. Mayor Solache? Absent. Councilmember Cacchiotti?
Yes,
Motion passes 3 absent.
great, thank you. I think we're down to number 6 now, Wayne. Other matters on the agenda? Committee members, any other matters? See no hands raised.
Just wanted to thank the chair and staff for moving us forward through today's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, council member. No other business here. Staff, no other business. Public comment period. Chance for the public to comment on items that are under jurisdiction for the legislative committee. No members of the public in the auditorium. Any members online, we'll give you a few seconds to raise your hand. And no hands raised. Public comment period is closed. We'll move to item number 8, which is our next meeting date, December 13th at 9 a.m. Other than that, this meeting is adjourned. Committee members, staff. Oh, hold on one second. I've got a hand raised. Council member, oh no? Okay. You're tricking us today, making it. Okay, I'll adjourn this meeting. Thank all of you for your time. Have a great Friday.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.